Hello, everybody. This is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools, and welcome to our webinar this afternoon on DeliverPoint. First of all, I just want to do a very quick intro to who we are at Lightning Tools, and then we're going to jump into just a few slides to introduce each topic, but we're going to do some nice introductions into what DeliverPoint is, how it can help you with SharePoint permissions and also Microsoft Teams permissions, and we'll do a deep dive into some of the brand new features of DeliverPoint as well. So first of all, just to intro Lightning Tools. So we're a company, we're based in the UK. We're established back in 2007 with the aim to build different products that are going to help you to be more efficient inside of Microsoft SharePoint. And those products include obviously the permissions management tool, DeliverPoint, but we also have a series of other products such as content aggregation. So we can aggregate content from different SharePoint lists and libraries and build reports on those, but also include content coming from the Microsoft Graph as well. So things like Microsoft Planner or Microsoft To Do or even OneDrive files can be aggregated into different reports using the Lightning Connector web part. We also have the discussion board, Social Squared, which can be used inside of Microsoft Teams and also SharePoint. We have the Data Viewer, which is a great platform to be able to build data integration either in the form of reports like grid views and also charts as well, such as pie charts, gauges, tree maps, and that type of view as well on external data as well as SharePoint content. And then we also have Lightning Forms, which is our SharePoint list form design tool. So that's compatible with SharePoint 2019 as well as SharePoint Online, allowing you to build modern forms. And we can further extend that using our list actions tool as well, which allows you to build command bar actions and also the document generator, which also works with those two products. So these are the different tools that we provide, and we build these tools internally from our UK headquarters, and we've also got a US office as well outside of Orlando in Florida. So what we're going to be talking about today is the DeliverPoint product. So DeliverPoint is the SharePoint permissions tool that we just introduced, and it's a product that can help not just IT and SharePoint administrators to report and manage permissions and govern permissions, but it could also help the site owner as well to be able to report and manage permissions on the site that they own. And it's the site owners, when you create a site, of course, you become the owner of that site. So it may be that you're creating a subsite, you're possibly even creating a brand new modern SharePoint site, which becomes, of course, a Microsoft 365 group. When you create those sites, you have a responsibility to make sure that the right people can access it. It's one of the first questions that occurs is, who do you want to invite into your brand new site? And once you've done that, of course, people are building content. They're creating folders, they're creating documents. They're also sharing those folders and sharing those documents, or even sharing lists as well with people inside the organization, or possibly even people outside of your organization if you allow external sharing links. So all of that requires the responsibility of the site owner to ensure that you're managing those permissions in the right way. We're confident that the right people have access to our permissions, but we also sorry, we're confident that the right people have access to our content, and it has been shared in the best practice way. So there's that responsibility as the site owner, but also from a SharePoint administrator perspective as well. We've got some requirements that we need to follow. We need to make sure that for our organization, we're following the best practices in terms of security and information security. And in order to be able to accomplish that, we may need to do some large scale reports. So not just reporting from within the site, but also maybe reporting across multiple sites. And to do this out of the box often requires a third-party tool such as DeliverPoint, or you need to create some PowerShell commands. Otherwise, you're doing the same as what the site owner would do, and that would be visiting each file at a time or each document at a time in order to be able to establish who's got permissions to that content. So bulk permissions are obviously a requirement, being able to make bulk permission changes such as removing users or transferring permissions between accounts. and overall just ensuring that we're meeting the best practices for our organization. So we're going to take a look at how DeliverPoint can actually help these two different types of users to be able to accomplish their goals, and that is to report and manage permissions in a more effective way. So starting off with the site owner, one of the key features of DeliverPoint is the fact that you can report and you can manage permissions inside the context of the SharePoint site. So when we're accessing a SharePoint site, you'll notice that if you are the site owner, you'll be able to produce certain reports, such as a discover permissions report to be able to see who's got access to it. You'll also be able to run a sharing links report to see what external sharing links are existing inside of your different document libraries and different lists and libraries as well. And you'll also be able to make changes as changes do occur inside your team or your department. And that might be that somebody new has joined your team, is replacing another user. And therefore, we may need to transfer the permissions from the person who's leaving to the person that is starting and joining our team. It may be that somebody's just retired, they're not being replaced, we just need to delete their permissions, or maybe we need to grant permissions as well. And of course, it's easy to do this at the site level. We can just take them in and out of groups. But what we don't really have the time to do as those site owners, as those business users, is to be able to go in and visit every single folder or every single document, checking out who's got permissions to that content and removing anybody that may have left the organization. So it's this type of functionality that DeliverPoint helps you with. So that allows you to select multiple files and folders, or an entire library of files and folders, or even the entire site and all of the objects within that site that have unique permissions. And from that, once you've got an understanding of who's got permissions, you can go through and make the changes in bulk. And there is a brand new permission report that we're going to be taking a look at today, and that is known as the Permission Summary Report. And it's a great place to start when you're looking at a modern SharePoint site, to just simply establish who has access, what sharing links are there, what external users are there, and so on. We'll be taking a look at that as we go through the demonstration. So let's jump in and take a look at DeliverPoint from a site owner's point of view. So I'm just going to bring up a SharePoint site, and we're going to jump into my sales site, where we've got this fictional sales site. There's just the usual sort of things going on. There's some permissions that are granted directly. There's some permission inheritance being broken. There's some Active Directory groups that have been given permissions through SharePoint groups, but also directly, and the usual type of challenges that we would face when it comes to permissions management. So starting off with just taking a quick look at the out of the box permission reporting, you'll notice when I go to the site permissions on the right hand side here, that we start off with a modern side panel, which is really hiding a lot of what's going on inside this site as far as permissions are concerned. What we can see is that there are 3 different levels of groups. So we've got site owners, site members, and site visitors. And of course, these are the SharePoint groups that get created. And if this was created from as a new site collection, as a new modern site collection, we'll also have a Microsoft 365 group, which you can see here. And we can see the members of that group. So we know that all 4 of these people here all have at least the edit permissions to the site. We can see that everybody has read permissions, and then we've got the sales group where we can't actually see the members of that because SharePoint doesn't enumerate the Active Directory security groups. And it's only if I did a bit more digging by going into the classic advanced permissions page, where we also see that there is some direct permissions going on. So demo user 5 is actually given full control, and that modern side panel did not give me that information. If I jump into a SharePoint group here, we can see that again the sales Active Directory group is displayed, but there is also another Active Directory group that is nested inside of sales, which we have no idea of when we're looking at SharePoint. So let's have a look at how DeliverPoint can give us a more accurate understanding as to who's got permissions. What you'll notice in the top right hand corner is that there's a few different shortcut menus that appear. So we've got things like discover permissions and sharing links and the new permission summary report, or access to the main DeliverPoint page as well. And this is something that only shows up to you if you have full control. With DeliverPoint, you don't need to actually do any user management as to who can use DeliverPoint. That's automatic. So if you have full control to the site as a site owner, you'll be able to see these icons. And just to illustrate that, I'm going to bring up the same site in a different window, but I'm logged in as a different user. So you'll notice here that I'm signed in as demo user 6. And as I reload this page, we don't see those DeliverPoint options appearing. And even if I go into a document library here on the shortcut menus, we're also not seeing any DeliverPoint options or on the command bar. Whereas when I'm signed in as the site owner, we do get those shortcut menus. And as I visit a document library, we are actually seeing DeliverPoint on the command bar here, and we can also see DeliverPoint on the shortcut menus as well. So it's really intuitive to a user to access these reports. They're just going to show up if you have access to discover the permissions for your site or for your folders and files. So let's have a look at the discover permissions first of all. So this discover permissions is really focused on the site itself. We can see a list of users, what permissions those users have, and on the far right hand side we can see how those permissions were granted. And as we scroll down, you'll see there's 2 pages of these permissions, and of course we can navigate through each page. Here's demo user 5, which we had already discovered, had full control by going to the advanced settings, but also notice that we've got other users like demo user 4 here, has the edit permissions, and that user we would have no idea that they had permissions to this site because they are inside the accounts payable AD security group, which is nested inside the sales AD security group. And the only thing that we could tell using SharePoint was that the sales AD security group had permissions, but we weren't sure who was in it. And we certainly didn't know that there was another nested AD security group in there. So this report here is going to tell you literally everybody that is permissioned on the site. And it's something that you can filter if you want to. So if you want to, rather than see a list of everybody, look at a specific permission level, we can do that. So I can see everybody who's got edit permissions, and all of these users with edit permissions may have actually been given edit permissions in a different way. Some of them are inside the Microsoft 365 group, some of them are inside AD security groups, and of course some may have been given edit permissions directly, and so on as well. And you could also filter on the user. So quite often you'll find that a user has been granted duplicate permissions, but maybe you've also got accounts with the same name, which is going on here as well. We can see there's a different avatar for 2 people here with the same name, happens to be me. One of them is the internal user, so we can see Brett at lightning.tools, and we've also got one which is actually my Gmail account, so that's an external user. Same person, but 2 different accounts being given access to the same site. So, so that's sort of great information to see when you're going through and reporting on those permissions. So that's the Discover Permissions report. It's something that can also be exported. So if you want to export this out, we can. It exports out as an Excel file. And of course, once we open that, it's available here inside of Excel, and we can do some further manipulation on that as well. So we can, of course, format this as a table, do some further filtering, that type of thing, in order to be able to see the information that we're after. So that's the Discover Permissions, and that same Discover Permissions report can be executed also inside of the different lists and libraries. So if I was interested in who has permissions to this commission sheets folder, we can access the Discover Permissions on the menu. And one of the things you'll notice is if I select more than one folder or file, that the default manage access permission control from SharePoint disappears, but we still have DeliverPoint. So I can actually go through and select as many folders as I like and still discover the permissions on those folders. And now if I was to maybe have a look at, let's have a look at everybody who's got full control. So, so now we can see who's got full control to these folders. and that's each of the folders that I selected from that document library. And it's from here that we can also make changes as well. So if we decided that we didn't want demo user 5 to actually have direct permissions, we can go through and select those, and from the actions menu here we could go through and delete those permissions. And once we hit run on that, that will go through and delete the permissions from those objects that I selected. Okay, so that's some of the Discover Permissions reports inside the site. What I also want to point out to you that what you might be doing is not necessarily assigning direct permissions, but you may also be using sharing links. So of course, anybody with edit permissions or above, depending on your environment and your settings, may be able to share with specific people. So they can go through and share here with internal users. We can share with external users as well. Let's give demo user 5 some love again. There we go. And we could also, like I say, share with Gmail accounts and that type of thing as well if it's an external user. So once I hit copy, that actually goes through and creates a sharing link for that user. And of course, this is still something that in order to be able to report on it, I need that manage access panel, which means we're reporting on these one object at a time, which of course is mostly not going to happen because nobody's got the time to do that. So let's have a look at how we can pull up the sharing links report in DeliverPoint. So we can click sharing links, and what I'll show you here is new from Microsoft is the ability to share lists as well as sharing items in a list. So you'll notice that DeliverPoint now caters for list sharing links as well as item sharing links. So I can see here that I've got an expense report list that's been shared, I've got a contacts list that's been shared, and I've also got some files and folders that have been shared as well. So in here, we can see the commission sheets was shared today by me with specific people, and we can go through and see who those specific people are. And there we are with demo user 12 and demo user 5. The one above it, the sales brochures, that's actually been shared with anybody with the link. So as long as you get the link, you can access that sales brochures with contribute permission. And of course, because that's anybody, I don't get to drill down to see who the people are. It is just anybody. And then the bottom one there is something that I shared a little while ago with different people as well. So if we want to remove these sharing links, we can just simply select the row, and we can select multiple rows, of course, if we want to, and then we can hit the remove sharing links. And oh, it failed to remove that one. Of course, that's because it's a demo. Let's try that one more time. Okay, not my friend right now. Not sure what that was. Let me just hit a refresh on that one. I may try that again shortly. Okay, so anyway, you can share and remove, and other reports also include the permission summary now. So this is the brand new report that we can offer, and this report here gives me lots of different options that I can include inside the permission summary report. So you'll notice here that we start off with some high-level information, such as how many unique objects do we have. That's how many objects, such as files and folders or documents or lists or libraries, actually have unique permissions where the permission inheritance has been broken. We can see the top scopes, so again the sites or subsites or lists or libraries that have the most broken permissions. We've got things like the sharing links count as well per object and so on that we can include. So if we generate this report, you'll notice that this information is all available to me. So rather than starting off looking at all the granular detail, I can see in here that there's, for example, 2 unique lists. So 2 lists with broken permission inheritance, and we can drill into that. We can see, sorry, I read that wrong, but yeah, we can see the lists that have broken permission inheritance, and also how many sharing links we have as well. So this is where we can dive into those sharing links and have a look at those and manage those as well. So the permission summary report just allows me to drill into lots more information. So we've got here the number of unique sites. If we pull that up, there's 2 subsites here with unique permissions. So my next level might be to actually go through and discover the permissions on that site to see who has permissions and try to establish why it may have unique permissions. And another new feature inside this version of DeliverPoint is the fact that we do have this multi-tabbed environment. So we can keep going back to the permission summary without having to rerun that. And we can kick off the different reports from the actions menu or the reports menu to be able to actually see what's going on inside that item. And of course, we can always go back again if need be. So these are the top scopes with the most unique objects, and we've also got the most sharing links as well. So you can see the site has 5 sharing links, the library has 3, the contacts list has 1, expense report also has 1, and we can see what level they're all at as well. Okay, so that's the type of thing that we can do whilst we are inside the site with DeliverPoint. So let's take a look at what we could do on a larger scale as maybe a site collection administrator or even the SharePoint administrator. So, of course, your responsibilities are different. When you are an IT administrator, you're having more of an overall view of permissions rather than that granular view of files and folders inside of a document library. Really, we're sort of interested in, are people using DeliverPoint in the right, people using SharePoint in the right way when they're assigning permissions. So we can look for things like dead accounts and external users. We can add and remove users if we want to several sites, which makes onboarding a lot easier. And of course, we can do all of that in bulk, not just within a site, but across sites, across site collections, also across things like hub sites and associated sites as well. So let's have a look at some of that functionality for DeliverPoint. So we're just going to jump back in. So we can do this in a couple of different ways. I can access DeliverPoint again off the menu. So here, when we jump into DeliverPoint, you'll notice that the selected scope here is the current site that I was in. We're still looking at Lightning Tools Sales, but the advantage of being a site collection administrator or as a SharePoint admin is you can show the tree view here, and you can actually start to increase the size of that scope by selecting different things off the tree view. Now, the tree view at this level is showing me different site collections. So all of these are site collections, and you'll notice that some of them have a slightly different icon. Some of them are classic site collection icons. Some of them are teamified sites, like the one that I'm in. We've also got hub sites, which may show in here, like this finance hub. And we've also got Microsoft 365 groups as well. So for each of these different site collections, we can drill into those to see if there's any subsites and any lists or libraries. So inside this site, the Lightning Tools Sales, we can see that it does have 2 subsites, and it also has a whole bunch of lists and libraries, and we can keep drilling into each of those sites to see their list and libraries as well. And within there, you can tell which of these objects, whether it's a site, whether it's a list or a library, that has unique permissions. So the expense report, for example, I can see already has unique permissions, and the way that I tell that is the icon is in full color, and you can see the same sort of thing if we compare these 2 document library icons. So the one just called Documents has unique permissions, the one called Client Documents is inheriting, and the same with these 2 sites here. So I can tell the region site has unique permissions. So this allows me to sort of focus on the right areas. I'm not wasting time reporting on permissions when those objects inherit permissions anyway. So here I'm going to select these 2 sites. We could just discover the permissions and go through and read about who's got permissions to these 2 objects. And of course, you could still filter that. So if we wanted to, again, look at who's got full control to each of those 2 sites, we could produce that type of report. But sometimes it's difficult to actually see why these might have unique permissions. And one of the advantages of DeliverPoint is the fact that you could just say, compare them, show me what is different. And in here, we can see that we've got both the sites, the Lightning Tools Sales and the region sites, and these are the differences. So demo user 8, demo user 9, and of course these groups and demo user 6, they don't have permissions to Lightning Tools Sales, but they do to the region site. So there's the differences. And if we want to add the document library in there as well, we could also do that. So you don't have to just compare sites, but you could also, if you like, compare lists and libraries against the sites as well. So Those reports will help you to establish as to why you've got unique permissions and does it make sense to have unique permissions. And if you decide that it didn't make sense, what you could do is actually go through and re-inherit the permissions here. So choosing inherit permissions will actually re-inherit that from the Lightning Tools sales root site. So that's one of the sort of things that we can do at that level. There's further reports at site collection level as well. So you notice when we go into the reports menu with a site collection selected, we can see things like the unlicensed users and dead accounts and external users as well. And we've also got the permission summary that you can run at that level as well. So one of the ones that I'm going to run actually first of all is a Discover Permissions Advanced, which is pretty powerful. So we can tell this report to include everything that has broken permission inheritance, and we can pre-filter it. So if I wasn't particularly interested in people with read permissions, for example, I'm only looking for permissions above that, then I can filter out the read permission. And when I produce this report, we're now getting a really good idea as to what's going on inside this site collection. We can see the site's permissions and each of the subsites as well. We've got the list permissions in here, so we can see who's got permissions to those. And then further down, we've also got item permissions. And notice that if you do have folders and subfolders in there, that even those folders and subfolders are displayed here, so we can actually go through and report at each folder level, even if it's buried deep inside the folder structure of a document library. And again, from there, we can go through and make changes. So selecting a row here, we can go in and make the changes using things like copy, transfer, delete permissions, and so on. Okay, and one of the things that's also new in DeliverPoint is this tree view scope at the top here. So we can actually change to whether we want to use the current scope when we're producing this report, which is everything inside that site collection, or switch to a tree view scope, which means I can actually start changing the scope inside here as well using the tree view. So that's a sort of toggle option that you've got available to you at that level. So other reports, other things that go on are things like dead accounts. And I just want to show you that that was a site collection wide report, but actually I'm going to go through and sort of cherry pick a few different site collections in here and show you that we can also report across different site collections as well. So this is a dead account report, and what this is producing is people that have permissions to things inside of these different site collections here, but they no longer appear inside the Active Directory, or they're disabled inside the Active Directory. So if you spot a user that is in here, we could go through and remove that account from that site collection so that they can, of course, no longer be showing up inside of the permission reports there. And we've got a similar sort of thing going on, not just for dead accounts, but also for external users, so we can see all the external users and their permissions throughout these different site collections and remove those if we need to as well. And also things like unlicensed users can also be executed on there. Okay, so another sort of common request, and this is by no means a new feature, but a common request is to actually see what permissions a particular user has. And that's something that we can do using this view here, which is the account view. And using the account view, we can just start to type in somebody's name and select the account that we're interested in. And once we've got that account selected, we can report on that person's OneDrive, we can report on their unique SharePoint permissions, or also sharing links. And so we're reporting on demo user 5. You can see in here, everything that we're looking at is to do with demo user 5. I can see all of the unique permissions that they have granted to them. Some of them are directly, again, not through a group. And then we also have some permissions that are through groups that the user happens to be a member of. And so we get that at the list level, the site level, and then further on up, we can also see the account membership. So we can tell which SharePoint groups or Microsoft 365 groups or AD security groups this user happens to be a member of. Okay, and jumping into some of the changes that we can make. So if we just jump back to the tenant view one more time, and I'll just reselect these. So I'm going to select the current site collection again. And what we've already determined is some of the permissions that demo user 5 had inside here. So I'm just going to filter on demo user 5. So we can see some of the permissions there, including this one, which is the direct permission of full control. And let's just assume for a moment that demo user 5 we know is leaving the organization. What we could do is go through and transfer permissions from demo user 5 and give them to demo user 6. And when we're doing this, we've got some options that we can choose. So do we want this to just run at the site scope that we're in, or do we also want to process some subsites? And DeliverPoint is recognizing that I'm also inside a teamified SharePoint site, so it's giving me the option to process any private channels that may come across. So if demo user 5 was a member of a private channel, demo user 6 would take on that role. We can also do the same thing with lists and items that may have unique permissions. Sometimes you may need to force break permissions if you want to give somebody permission to 50 different folders, and at the moment all of those 50 folders are inheriting permissions. We can force break it, and we'd need the rights to be able to do that. And we can also roll back the changes as well. So maybe this is a temporary thing. Maybe demo user 5 is going on vacation and demo user 6 needs to have those permissions for a couple of weeks, and then we can put it back again. Or maybe we just tick this as a safety net so we can reverse it if need be. And you can also modify the Microsoft 365 group or SharePoint group membership, which is also optional. So when we run this, notice it's going through performing these changes. So we're transferring permissions between those two different accounts. And what I'll do is just go back to run the Discover Permissions report. And we can see that demo user 5 still has read here. That wasn't taken away from them because they only had that because they were inside the everyone group, and they still are inside the everyone group. So that's not changed. But what we should see in here, in fact, if we just make our life easier, we'll filter here on demo user 5. So all of these permissions that demo user 5 has are all explained still because they're inside AD security groups or the everyone group. And that's one thing that DeliverPoint doesn't change deliberately, is the membership of an AD security group, because that could have an effect on other systems. But there's no other permissions that are granted to demo user 5 in here. And now, if we really wanted to make sure that they're gone from the system, of course, we know which AD security groups to take them out of as well. So let's filter back on demo user 6. And what you can see is demo user 6 has taken on the full control that demo user 5 had. And if we wanted to reverse that, because we had the option to roll back this job, we can roll it back here. And that will reverse it. And once more, let's just discover permissions. And we'll see that demo user 6 no longer has that full control in the same way that has been given to demo user 5. And there's the full control back. Okay, so this just makes managing permissions a lot easier from that high level, where you can select multiple site collections or multiple sites and perform these changes in bulk. And of course, that was the transfer permissions, but there's also delete permissions and copy permissions and things like that you can do as well. And when you are running these reports, if you had a specific filter in mind, or you were selective as to what sites you want to include, one of the things you can also do is save that as a template, and your reports will then be available under the reports template menu. So these are some of the reports that I may have run previously, and rather than having to go through and selecting the different scopes and so on, I can just simply select those and run the report, and we've got everything that we want to see that's maybe on a sort of weekly or monthly basis, and so on. And we don't have to go through and set lots of different options on that. And a new feature of DeliverPoint is the fact that we can now go through and not just view the changes that occurred, but we can also modify as well. So we can go through and change the name of the template. We can change some of the properties on here. We can also add filters to make sure that we're affecting the right objects when we're applying those permissions. And if we want something similar but slightly different, we can also now clone as well. So now I've got 2 John sales reports, and we can make one of them slightly different if we need to. Okay, so they are some of the sort of permission management features that you may want to do centrally with inside of DeliverPoint. And you can either do that by accessing that DeliverPoint menu on the page here, or if you prefer, you can actually go through and add DeliverPoint as a web part on any page, and it will still be security trimmed. You're still only going to be able to manage the permissions on those objects that you have full control to. So if I add DeliverPoint here, you'll notice that we get the DeliverPoint web part. So now we've got our sort of permissions page that we can come to, and we could share this page with maybe other people inside of IT that need to come to one place in order to be able to report and manage the permissions. And from there, you could also make it full screen and so on if you want to as well. Okay, so that's a little bit of DeliverPoint. DeliverPoint is available also inside of Teams, and that's not an extra purchase, it's the same product. So once you've deployed DeliverPoint as a SharePoint Framework app inside your app catalog, you can actually make that available inside of the Teams app catalog as well. And it can show up in 2 different places. You can either add DeliverPoint to a Teams channel tab, so that's useful if you want the context of the current team when you're producing reports, or you can also add it as a personal app over on the left hand side here. And if it's available as a personal app, then you get to be able to report and manage across all of the different teams in your environment. So let's just have a quick look at that. There's no new features specifically for Teams. It's exactly the same product. You're just running inside of the Teams environment. So, so you'll notice when you first go into DeliverPoint that the view is the Teams view. You can still access the other views, and you can search on the different teams. So if I do a search on technical support, for example, as we go through and expand the technical support team, we can see the different channels, lists, and libraries that are in it. We can see that there's no permission inheritance changes that have gone on inside this example. And from here, we can go through and choose the different sites. So I can choose the private channel and the main Teams channel. And again, we can sort of discover the permissions on those. So in here, we can see he's got access to the private channel and also to the main team and so on. Okay, so it's the same options otherwise. So if we wanted to transfer permissions, we can do that across multiple teams. We can do all the OneDrive reporting from here. You can access those jobs and so on and so forth. It's just the fact that it is taking on the Teams context for when you're within Teams and managing permissions. Okay, so just a sort of summary of what's new. We've had a look at some of these new features already. So the permissions summary report, this is something that you can access either from the main DeliverPoint page, or you can also run the permission summary report from within inside a site. And that's a great place to sort of understand what's going on inside your site, because obviously it's going to be time consuming going from one folder to the next or one list to the next in order to be able to report on the permissions. So the permission summary report gives you a great understanding of how many sharing links there are, how many broken permissions, and then you can drill into the permissions reports specifically from there. You've got the multi-tabbed reporting now as well, so that allows you to keep some reports open whilst making changes and then being able to go back to your report. You can change the scope inside the tabs, as you saw, clone the report templates, so you can make different changes to some of those cloned reports, and you can also, of course, edit the report templates as well. And one of the main new features is the ability to manage the list sharing links. So, as I mentioned, this is something that's fairly new from Microsoft. If we just bring up SharePoint again, one moment. So when I'm inside of my list or library, let's just go into the site contents here. So there's one here, for example, just called clients. And if I go into that one and I want to share this entire list, so we're not talking about this share icon here where it shares the item. We've got the share at the top here where it's actually sharing the list. And so there's different options in here, such as sharing with anybody again, or sharing with specific people. But at the bottom here, there's also other settings. So you've got even the can edit list, which allows the adding and the removal of columns or views inside there as well, which obviously isn't the default, but it's still available. So even more reason to sort of stay on top of what sharing links you have inside of your site. If I apply this now and copy that, you'll notice that when I go into the sharing links report, that clients is now a shared list. Okay, so so that's the sort of new feature there with regards to managing the sharing links, is the ability to go through and view that. So they were the new features. One common question that we also get asked is, how do we install DeliverPoint? So DeliverPoint is installed as a Microsoft SharePoint Framework application, and that means you just simply drag it and drop it into your app catalog. And of course, you need to be the administrator in order to be able to do that. But once you've done that, it becomes tenant scoped deployed, and there's no further management of it. It's if you have full control, as mentioned, to an object, you're going to be able to use DeliverPoint on that object. Another question that we often get asked is, whereabouts is all the data stored? And the good news is there is no data that we're storing at all. All of the reports that you saw were all running in real time, and they're processed inside of your tenant. So when I produce a Discover Permissions report, we're basically using a mixture of Microsoft Graph and also the client-side object model inside of your environment to provide that report. So yeah, there is no processing, there is no storage of data outside of your tenant there. We do have a DeliverPoint Plus version. So this is DeliverPoint Plus scheduled reports. And this is something that is going to be pushed out this month. The standard version of DeliverPoint 3.5 is already available that you can upgrade to. But in here, we've also got the DeliverPoint Plus, which will be an additional version of DeliverPoint. And this includes the ability to schedule a Discover Permissions or schedule a sharing links report. So I'm just going to pull this up to demonstrate this to you. So this is a different tenant, and what you'll notice here when I go into DeliverPoint is that there is a schedule button. So not only do we get to do the reports like a Discover Permissions in real time, we could, if we wanted to, schedule that report to run. And you'll notice if I go into the scheduled reports view that we can see all of the reports that have already been scheduled. And we can see whether they've been actually executed or not. I'm just going to copy this link address here for a moment, because what I'm going to do is go through and schedule one. So we'll select the fact that we want to schedule a Discover Permissions. We could, of course, select our scope from the tree view. We can paste in the list, or sorry, the library that we want the report to be generated within, and we can choose the frequency of the report. So if this is a report that we want to see on a monthly basis, I can choose monthly. I can choose the day of the month that we want to have that report on, and the time, and then we can choose whether we want to generate it just once or whether we want it to reoccur. And once we hit schedule on that, that has been scheduled, and we would access it by going to the scheduled reports. So in here, you can see the blue icon there to say that it is scheduled. We can see when we scheduled it for and the frequency and so on. And once it's generated, the report's going to be available as a hyperlink like these ones here. And that hyperlink is linking out to the Excel document version of that report. So as I select this one, you'll notice that we get that CSV file. And again, I can see all of the people that are permissioned on it. So if you need this for sort of auditing purposes to be produced on a 6-monthly basis, a monthly basis, or a weekly basis, whatever it might be, that's something that DeliverPoint can provide. And because of the structure of this one, it can work with extremely large scoped reports as well. Okay, so that's a new version of DeliverPoint, which will be coming out. And how this one is handled is a little bit more complex than the standard version of DeliverPoint. This also uses some Azure functions in order to be able to produce the timed report or the scheduled report. So there is further setup and so on, but still, that's all being processed inside of your tenant. It's inside your Azure environment that those functions would exist. Okay, so that brings us to the Q&A. So I do notice whilst we were chatting that there was some questions that were appearing. So just bear with me whilst I read up on some of those. So if you do want to ask a question, please feel free to type it in the chat window, and I'll be happy to read that out. Okay, so I think some of these I've actually answered. So one of them is, are you able to export any of the report results to Excel or PDF? Yeah, so every single report, I showed you a couple of them, but every single report, whether it's the Discover Permissions, the Sharing Links report, it doesn't matter what scope it is, all of those can be exported out to Microsoft Excel. And of course, if you need that in PDF as well, you could convert that from within inside of Excel as well. And then where can you go to update DeliverPoint? So if you're using DeliverPoint Online, then basically you can go out to the customer area on our website. So as you go to Lightning Tools, and I'll bring this up for complete clarity. So if we just jump into Lightning Tools here, over on the right hand side is a customer area, and in there is the download center, and inside the download center you'll see DeliverPoint for SharePoint Online as a featured link, and there's the latest version, and you'll always see a sort of summary of what the version entails, and also a link out to the blog post as well that elaborates a little bit with some screenshots, etc. And if ever you want to get to any of the previous versions, you can do that as well. So you'll notice here that expanding that previous versions section does just that. Okay, so that's where you can download the package, and once you've downloaded that package, that's what you drag and drop into your app catalog, and that will upgrade your instance of DeliverPoint. Okay, but yeah, the request there was to send you directions, so we'll also do that as well. Okay, so there's a question here about the DeliverPoint icon in the top right, moving the hub navigation up and down. Is there a plan to move that icon to the sweep bar? It's something we're aware of, we're looking at. It's the same with anything that you add up there. It wasn't the case, but as Microsoft has made some changes, yeah, that has affected that for us. So yeah, all I can say at the moment is we are aware of it, and we're investigating a way to overcome that challenge. Okay, I think that was all the questions. So if you do have a question, you didn't want to answer it in the chat pane, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to me on brett@lightningtools.com, or you could also reach out to sales. If you've got any sales questions, that's sales@lightningtools.com. You can also request pricing on our website as well. You can request a quotation, and you can also obtain a 30-day trial. So if this is the first time you've seen DeliverPoint and you want to experience it inside your own environment, you can download a trial for 30 days, and you can also schedule a private demonstration as well if you want to, where we can talk specifically about some of your requirements around permissions management, and we'll be able to demonstrate how the product would work in those circumstances. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully see you again on our next webinar.